In medicine, we rarely look at detoxification. I'm talking about mainstream conventional medical practice. In fact, I'm not sure that we even spell the word. And yet, at the same time, if your sewer system blocks up, how could you ever imagine that you could be healthy? Today, we have with us an expert in detoxification. In fact, she's written a book on it. Her name is Linda Berry, Dr. Linda Berry. She is a chiropractor who is trained in certified clinical nutrition. She's a healing Tao instructor, which means basically she's into meditative practice. And she does something that I think is extremely important called somatic psychotherapy, which is the work of Peter Levine. She's been in practice 26 years, and I've had the pleasure of meeting her and knowing her over the past decade a couple of times. So, Linda, it's great to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Yes, Linda, welcome.
Thank you.
I see you've written this book, Internal Cleansing.
Yes.
So what motivated you to write this book?
Well, like Len said, if the sewer system is backed up, it's very difficult to have health. I think the naturopathic doctors make a big emphasis on this, cleaning out the bowel, having your intestines moving regularly. So I put together a book that helps to alert people in the beginning section to, do they need cleansing? So there's some questionnaires in there like, do you have acne? Are you tired? Do you get headaches? Do you have gas? So you can self-evaluate and see if you do need cleansing.
Is there anybody that doesn't need cleansing?
I don't think so.
Well, when you say need cleansing now, are we talking about being constipated and needing an enema? Are we talking about having a colonic? Are we talking about a diet? What are we talking about?
My method of cleansing, I prefer to go from the top down and from the inside out.
Me too.
Oh, good.
There's something about
Phew.
the other way around that's not very appealing.
It doesn't make a lot of sense
No.
on some levels.
That's
Yeah.
right.
So how do we start from the top down? So whatever we put in our mouths, I guess it starts with the enzymes to break down the food, huh?
Yes, absolutely.
I'm-
The enzymes are critical, but the top would be the head. So what are we thinking? What's going on in our mind? Are we self-deprecating? Do we have a lot of negative self-talk? That creates chemistry in the body that also creates toxicity of sorts. So I recommend that people begin with their mind and their thoughts and begin to watch what your thinking is. At a business women's meeting, we were told to write down, make a tick mark for every negative thought we had during the day. And that included not only thoughts to ourselves, but those people who are cutting you off in traffic.
So these toxic thoughts.
That's right.
Well, I noticed that in your book, on the cover, that one of the endorsing persons is Candace Pert,
That's right.
who talks, of course, she wrote the book Molecules of Emotion, and
Yes.
talks about how our physiology is so affected by what we think.
Absolutely.
Because it affects our biochemistry.
That's right. And then it has a result in our organs and in our glands. So we start with the head, then we move to the mouth. Water is incredibly important. That helps to rinse through the body. We wouldn't think of going a week without taking a shower, but some people don't drink any water during the day. My recommendation is 1/2 ounce of water for every pound that you weigh. So a 140-pound person would drink 70 ounces water minimum a day.
You know, I think you're really on the right track there, and it's interesting that just a few weeks ago an article came out by nephrologists, okay, these are the kidney experts, talking about the fact that there are no standards that have been set for water, and they thought that it would even be dangerous to drink too much. And I looked at that article and thought, those idiots, not really even looking at the fact that Mother Nature is trying to tell us to drink water. We're made of at least 70% water.
Well, it is possible to drink too much. There was somebody that recently died from
You've got to be a fanatic.
drinking too
to do
much
that.
on a dare.
Yeah.
Yeah, but not 1/2 ounce of water for every pound you weigh. That's not too much.
Right.
And how about when you exercise? Obviously, you need more when you exercise.
Absolutely. And the rule of thumb there is for every 15 minutes that you sweat, replace 8 ounces of water. And if you're an endurance athlete, not just water, but you also need to think about electrolytes.
I remember that happened to Len over here. He played in
Len
the
was
tennis.
playing in Jakarta, okay, which is right on the equator. And it was about 95 degrees and 100% humid. In fact, it was like a steam bath. I had just come back from Florida, where it was relatively cool compared to that, if you can imagine that.
Wow.
And so an hour and a half later, I'd lost about 14 pounds.
My goodness.
And they were carrying me off on a stretcher.
I understand.
So now I'm an advocate of water.
Well, it happened
It's
another
staying
time,
cool.
too, when you played in Stockton. But the thing that happened too was that he got horrible cramps. He kept getting cramps in every place in his body, I think, had a cramp.
So Linda's talking about the importance of water and electrolytes.
Right.
And that's a good point.
Yeah. And then we need to think, of course, of fiber.
Mm-hmm.
And Americans, it's very sad, get most of their fiber from white bread, which tells you how very little fiber we get.
Yeah.
I recommend about 40 to 50 grams of fiber a day. And to do that, you need to eat a large quantity of vegetables. And of course, we know that the people that are most healthy are those who have a plant-based diet. So 5 to 10 servings of vegetables per day. And
How
that
big
would
are
be,
these servings?
Yes,
That's a lot of
that
vegetables.
was what I was just going to tell you. A half a cup of cooked vegetable or a cup of raw vegetable.
Okay.
So, if you get a big salad, that could be 3 or 4 cups right there. So there's 4 servings right in one meal if you're eating a big salad. But I do recommend that you have fruit or vegetables with every meal in order to reach that level.
So basically what you're saying, if I understand it right, is that the fiber does a couple of things. One is it kind of like adsorbs out the toxins onto it, and so it doesn't get absorbed by our bodies.
That's one of the roles, yeah.
And secondly, probably the effect on the microbes that live in the gut. What does it do for the microbes that live in the gut?
Well, that's like their fertilizer. The fiber is the food for the bacteria, so they chomp on that. And the nice thing about it is that the unhealthy bacteria, the ones that cause disease in the body, don't eat the fiber. Only the healthy ones eat the fiber.
So you can
by
crowd them
eating
out.
fiber, you crowd out the bad hats and support the growth of the good hats. And then another effect is that it acts like a broom. So it sort of sweeps through the microvilli of the intestines.
That's a great visualization.
Yeah.
So we don't have to do these colonics then, right?
I don't think that they're absolutely necessary, no.
Well, what
Yeah.
about essential fatty acids?
Essential fatty acids are also critical. The inside of our intestines is mucous membrane, and it needs to be well lubricated. It needs to have good cellular integrity. So essential fatty acids help to make up the cell membranes lining the intestinal tract, which also helps to stimulate peristalsis, which is the movement of the intestines to push out the bad stuff.
All good stuff. Again, the gut is one important place. The skin is another place where
Right.
detoxification is important.
Yes, the skin is the largest organ in the body. Most of us don't think about that. But when we sweat through exercise, or if we can't exercise, going in saunas is a good way to clean out the pores, to let the toxins come out of the cells.
And then I think it's important after you've done that to rub it off or brush it off, right?
Well, actually, I recommend the skin brushing before you go into the sauna
Really?
or before you sweat. You want to brush on dry skin because that stimulates the nerve endings more effectively. If it's wet, it doesn't have as much of a stimulating effect.
But I'm thinking when you perspire, you want to get all those toxins off of your body.
Oh, you want to shower afterwards, absolutely.
Oh, shower's good. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of the toxins in our body are fat soluble, so
Right.
they go into the fat tissues, and there they are stored for decades sometimes.
Right.
And when you exercise, one of the ways to get them to clean themselves out is to excrete it through sweat and through
That's
the sweat
right.
glands.
And heavy metals also come out through the sweat. There have been sauna studies that show that even heavy metals like mercury and cadmium can come out of the skin, which the Environmental Protection Agency says that the levels of mercury that we have in the air are too much now. And with the energy crisis, our current leadership in the White House is pushing for more coal
I know.
plants, which will create more mercury in the atmosphere. And we already have levels that are too high, so we need to develop strategies to get rid of those heavy metals because they do damage the nervous system.
Well, we're poisoned enough by the fish that we eat and by the amalgams we put in our mouth.
That's right.
I find it kind of interesting that
Fluorescent lights.
that the FDA allows mercury to be put into a toxic waste dump or else your mouth. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Doesn't.
What about lymphatic drainage?
The best way to stimulate the lymphatic drainage is actually to exercise. The lymph system doesn't have a pump like the heart does, so it only gets the mechanism to pump secondary to the blood vessels. So particularly jogging on a trampoline jogger where your heels go below.
A rebounder, huh?
Yes, a rebounder. That helps to pull on those vessels so that it helps to stimulate them. And of course, we want to be careful with our fat consumption because excess fat that our body can't handle after the meal gets dumped into our lymphatic system. So that can be very congesting. So you want to make sure to eat the right kind of fats: olive oil, coconut oil, fatty fish, grass-fed beef, organic nuts and seeds. We were talking about how toxins get stored in the fat. They're also stored in the fat of the plants and the animals and the nuts and the seeds and the oils that we eat. So if we're eating non-organic foods that are high in fat, we're just pumping our body full of the toxins that those plants or animals have gathered within themselves.
That's a really good point.
Absolutely.
I haven't heard that explained
one
in
of the things,
in that way.
one of the reasons why you don't want to eat at the top of the food chain, because they're the ones that have had the chance to accumulate toxins longer. And it's particularly true of fish.
That's right.
You probably want to use younger, smaller fish.
Smaller fish, that's
and it's
right.
probably why meats, if you're going to eat them, the best ones are veal and lamb, even though that's it's got a cruel side to it. But they don't have enough time to gather all the toxins that the older animals do.
Good thought. And also I recommend pasture-fed or grass-fed because a grass-fed beef actually has a higher content of the essential fatty acid omega-3 than wild salmon does. And, of course, that's been our benchmark for getting omega-3s in the past.
I think the beef industry has gotten a bad rap, but then a lot of the reason why they have is because of the way they process and feed their animals.
Yes.
And treat them.
And treat them as well.
Yes.
So this whole area of detoxification is really critical. And in your book, I think you've got a lot of ideas here. I want to mention to people, this book is called Internal Cleansing. It's in its second edition. The initial part of the book on the cover is supported by Candace Pert, who wrote, "Conventional medicine has really missed the boat. Cleansing help you think and feel better." And I look at that as an understatement.
Yes.
And as somebody who's done complementary and alternative medicine as well as a mainstream approach for about 15 or 20 years, I support that. Then on the back of the book, you've got people like Jeffrey Bland and Ephraim Korngold, who are two of my heroes. I think know so much about it, and the fact that they've supported what you're talking about really means a lot to me. So I highly recommend the book Internal Cleansing. It's written by Dr. Linda Berry. You can get it on her website at www.drlindaberry, that's LINDABERRY.com. Or you can call her at 415-847-3755. She's a practitioner in the Bay Area. And if you want good advice on how to detox, she's one of the best around. Linda, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Detoxification is a term you don't hear much in medicine. You go to the hospital and people are sick. They're not detoxing, and doctors don't know the first thing about it. I can tell you because I went to medical school, too, and practiced medicine for 35 years, and I didn't know much about detox until I started to study detoxification. We have with us an expert today in detoxification. His name is Ed Bowman, and he's been with us the last week, giving us some really exciting stuff about a lot of subjects. I want to remind you that he's the founder and director of the Bowman College of Holistic Nutrition and Culinary Arts. He has 4 campuses that he teaches on, as well as a distance learning course. He's the author of Eating for Health, A Guide to Optimum Health and Vitality. And he's back with us again today to talk a little bit about detox. Nice to have you back, Ed. Thanks.
Hi, Len. It's good to be here, as always.
Now, we're talking about the do's and don'ts of detox. Tell me, what is this detox all about? Why is it important?
Well, I think what goes around comes around. And basically, we are taking in food, taking in water, taking in air, taking in light, taking in sound, taking in information, taking in one another.
Absolutely.
And what I've noticed is there's a lot of negative, toxic, polluted, corrupted material that's coming into our body.
Toxic thoughts as well.
No, I'm saying, quantum physics says we're all information.
Right.
Epigenetics, which is the science of how our genes are expressing themselves towards health or disease, towards optimal performance or premature death, are going, we're just responding to, signals.
Exactly.
So I think we need to be a bit more careful or responsible about what we're taking into our body, our mind, and so forth, and look at how we can process that effectively so that it doesn't become us. So, for instance, if we get an immediate exposure of pesticide or an herbicide or a cleaning solution or a cosmetic that
thousands of things we're exposed to.
Yeah, there's
every
a
day.
lot. I mean, even the healthiest, the best of us. There's a group called the Environmental Working Group in Bolinas who put on Commonweal. These are hippies who've been living on the coast for 30 years.
They're polluted too.
And they had 120 different chemicals in their body.
I know.
So
I
that was
remember
kind
the
of
study.
fun. And I mean, I understand that. And probably half of them have cancer.
Yeah,
And they're people who live well.
that's right.
So I think the
right.
the really cutting edge of health and science is how do we neutralize these chemicals? First, how do we identify body burden?
Exactly.
How do we identify body burden? Well, there's 4 or 5 different lab tests, and they're not that expensive. One can do a hair or a urine test to look at heavy metals, which are cadmium and zinc and mercury and aluminum and so forth. And, looking at that, it's likely people will find a burden of mercury or cadmium or something
lead,
like that, or lead, sure.
I think most people do.
I mean, the thing for you and I is we've got to be practical and sensible, is that, compared to the 100 people we see or the 500 people we see, this is sort of a normal load, and you're managing it, and you're holding up, and you're not symptomatic.
Right.
Or, whoa, that's really high.
Some
You
people,
need
it
to know-
takes you over the edge. You might just have a little bit, and it may be the final blow that takes you from feeling good
Right.
to being sick.
Right.
But what it doesn't do is take you back to full wellness, optimum wellness and vitality, like your book talks
so
about.
people have to first identify it, and then second, create some kind of a strategy to work with it. And what's frightening is people who are unsupervised. People who buy a book in a store, who go online and see, detoxify in 20 days, 30 days, and
all
whatnot.
these BS things that are out
Yeah.
there that people are selling something and it's bunk.
Yeah. So, again, that worries me because I see people who've tried it and have become seriously ill. I mean, damage to their kidney, damage to their brain, all that stuff. So it's you have to be careful. It takes 6 months to a year to safely kind of clear a toxic burden of a heavy metal.
Oh, at least. I
No,
do that through food. A lot of people using drugs, which I think even complicates it more.
Well,
there's a lot you could do that's just in your natural diet to detoxify from heavy
the things that we've talked about this week in terms of plants and fibers and oils and herbs are all natural detoxifiers. So when people begin to have a healthy diet, I call it an eating for health diet, right? Which is the diversified, whole food, plant-based diet.
with lots of colors, huh?
Yeah, bright rainbows. 5 colors at every meal.
That's right.
I mean, why not? You can get a red, a yellow, a green, a white, a blue
It's
in every
interesting,
meal.
too. Why not make
it's
it
gorgeous.
appealing visually
Why not
as
have
well?
a fruit salad? Why not have a big, colorful vegetable salad? Why not decorate your fish?
Right.
So suppose you get a nice piece of fresh fish, a salmon that's wild or some trout out of the stream.
Yeah.
You could put some red pepper on it. You could put some black olives on it. You could put some cilantro on it. You could put some turmeric on it. And all of a sudden, your basic food becomes kind of you said you love the food that we make, and the look is really good, the taste is really good, and the effect is very powerful.
You sound like Hippocrates.
You think?
He said, yeah. He
Make
said, let
food your medicine.
Yeah, and medicine your food.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what you're talking about.
I'll tell you another thing that works like a charm is pesto.
Okay.
So think about it.
So what's in pesto besides basil?
Well, it could be basil, but it wouldn't be limited to basil.
Okay.
You can mix and match. You can have basil with cilantro,
Okay.
or with parsley, or with oregano, or with thyme, or with marjoram.
They all sound
Or dill.
good.
So
A little
you can
of each.
No, but you can. I mean, it tastes
Yeah.
so amazing when you blend out 4 or 5 different greens, and then you can put in garlic, which is a powerful cleanser and
Heavy
immune.
metal chelator.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's really nice. And then you can put in flax seeds. I am the flax man.
Me too.
I like flax, and I like whole flax seeds.
I do. You grind them up? You think you can chew them enough?
I'm just saying, everybody grinds, but I say chewing is your primary method of grinding.
One of the reasons.
So if you were going to get, I understand,
Okay.
but if you were going to get, a typical pesto,
Yeah.
you would have pine nuts.
Yeah.
And pine nuts are fine,
Yeah.
and they have some value, and they
That's
have some mineral, they have some magnesium,
Right,
some
right.
saturated and monosaturated fats. But you can mix up seeds, whether it's hemp seeds, flax seeds, sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds. You can chop them up, or you can powder them.
Okay.
I'm not contrary, but if the flax seeds are in with the garlic and in with the pesto and whatnot, they will literally absorb that phytonutrient content and carry it in your system and time release it.
You're absolutely right.
You can get a blender. You don't cook this.
Uh-huh.
So that's the thing. You don't have to cook it. You can take 2 or 3 cloves of garlic. You can take about a cup of green herbs. You
God,
can
I'm starting to drool.
I know.
It sounds so good.
And you can put good salt in there.
Yeah.
Because
Sea
salt
salt.
is a powerful, or some kind of mineral salt that is either from France or from Japan or from the Himalayas.
yeah.
Or
You're not going to get table salt, are
But
you?
see, salt is not white.
Right.
If you have
It's
white,
a brown color.
it's gray.
Yeah.
It's pink. It's green. I mean, salt is a crystalline compound. It's like a crystal.
Yeah.
That's
what
and
it is.
It is. And so it doesn't need to be bleached. It doesn't need to be cooked. Doesn't need to be processed.
Right.
So if you add some fresh salt to some green herbs and some spices,
Get your micronutrients.
yeah, you make it up and you can slather that on toast or put it on rice or put it on veg or put it on a dip. And it's a daily detoxifier. You get green tea in there, you're going to get trace minerals and bioflavonoids that are going to be protective while you're pulling things out. And then you have to get good fiber. Because if you're going to do anything that's going to have a chelating or clawing effect, which is what some of these things do, they're magnets.
Right.
They help the cells to release.
Right.
So once you start doing that, then you have to make sure you capture it so it doesn't reabsorb.
So what they do is they adsorb the toxins onto the surface of the fiber.
That's right.
You probably don't want to use FiberCon, do you?
I don't know what that is.
It's an artificial fiber that nothing digests, not
Right.
even your bacteria. All it
Right.
does is hold water.
Right.
So it's good for constipation, but it doesn't do a thing for your GI tract.
Well, then whatever. I'm not down with that.
Okay, that's all right.
know.
Well, good. I'm
So-
glad you don't know about it. It's not a good thing to know about.
I've been living in my own dream for a long time. But the point is, with this thing, metals are one kind of thing, and then there's petrochemicals.
Lots of them.
And there's laboratories that will look at urine output and look at metabolites that will indicate 10 different types of petrochemicals. And that's not a terrifically expensive test for environmental pollutants.
No.
And then you can begin to do some of the same things. I mean, the approach is, the therapy is fairly similar for 3 or 4 different levels of intoxicants.
I agree.
Right? And then let's say you're overweight, and we see a ton of people with overweight.
Extra polluted.
No, but think about it. Their body is storing
fats.
lipid-based chemicals,
That's right.
whether it's herbicide, pesticides, plastics,
That's
xenotoxins,
That's right.
in fat as protective measure.
Exactly.
Then you go, okay, eat health food, get exercise, move your energy around. All that stuff gets released.
Absolutely.
So you've got to be ready to catch that when it comes out. And if people don't do that, they're going to reabsorb, and that could be dangerous. And that's what sets up autoimmune conditions.
That's what I think, too.
So autoimmune conditions are very prevalent. That's another conversation for us. But it's basically material that's not biological. It's not self. It doesn't break down into single constituents like an amino or a fatty or a vitamin or a molecule of starch or something. And then that becomes part of a complex with immune cells, and that lays on an organ or lays on a gland or lays on a joint or lays on the tissue, and then the immune system says we have to blast that out.
It also upsets the GI tract, which is
Totally.
the largest immune organ there, and probably sets the stage for leaky gut syndrome, which lets a lot of those toxic things into the body. Next thing you know is your immune system's overwhelmed and you're sick.
The other things that we definitely want to look at is hydration, because it's easy to be dehydrated or to have beverages with caffeine and sugar or artificial chemicals that are dehydrating or diuretics or the effect of medication.
Right.
So what most people can't really factor is the exponential kind of activity within a body of drugs and nutrients and environmentals and and even internal metabolic waste.
You've made something that sounds complex pretty simple.
Well,
you sound like
we do a
Hippocrates
fasting program.
Uh-huh.
The fasting program really kind of primes the pump. It enables people to let go. And I've done fasting programs for 24 years.
You've got one coming up in May. It's called the Vitality Fast. It's a juice fast. It'll be in Santa Cruz in Ben Lomond. If you want information about this, you can go to Ed Bowman's website at bowmannutrition.com and get more information about it, or call him at 1-800-987-7530. That's 800-987-7530. Or if you're interested in learning about how to become a chef and learn something about nutrition itself, take some of the courses at the college at www.bowmancollege.org. Ed, has been a fantastic week of having really a lot of insights about nutrition and the important role it plays in our lives.
Food's powerful.
So are you. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
joining us.
It's good to be with you.
The Health Medicine Forum's event, Healthy Planet, Healthy People, is Tuesday, August 25th, 2009. That's tonight. This is your last chance to get a ticket for $15 by calling in the 943-SHOW. That's 925-943-SHOW. We have back with us today Dr. Beverly Rubik, who is a Ph.D. in biophysics from UC Berkeley and is a scientist internationally renowned for exploring the frontiers of science and medicine. She's a professor at both the California Institute of Integral Studies and Saybrook University, where she teaches integrative health studies. She's published more than 80 scientific papers and founded the Institute for Frontier Science. Beverly, it's great to have you back again today.
Thank you, Len. It's a pleasure.
You know, today we're going to talk a little bit about exercise and sweating and how the detoxification is such an important piece of what happens when we're exposed to the toxins that we're exposed to in everyday living. So what are some of the things that come to mind as you think of that?
Yes, I'm concerned about the major cancers which are in all the excretory organs in our culture. Breast cancer, the breast being a big sweat gland.
Yes.
Colon cancer.
Yep.
Lung cancer. And
Yes.
prostate.
Sure.
These are the major organs that excrete something, and yet they're congested, and people are getting cancer. And what I see is congestion in the blood on live blood cell analysis. Virtually everybody has it.
Well, don't we eat too much and exercise too little, and we're generally just congested?
That's it. That's the picture of the average American. Is you can look at the physique and you can get a picture of what's going on at the microscopic level by looking at all those fat deposits externally. There's a lot going on microscopically that reveals the same. The congestion is in the blood everywhere.
Well, you know, we're getting pollution everywhere. It's in our air that we breathe, the water that we drink, what we put on our skin. It's in, on, around us, everywhere. And so we all need to detoxify.
Absolutely.
But is there a way to detoxify that could be dangerous? I mean, is there a certain way we need to do it? Do we need to go to somebody is there somebody we need to go to guide us through it, or can we just do it on our own?
Well, did Mother Nature take care of us? Is there a simple way to do this, Dr. Rubik?
I think.
Well, when Mother Nature started out, though, we hadn't been killing ourselves slowly like this.
Well, we need to exercise more to the point of
go.
not only just breaking a sweat, but serious sweating. I mean, think about humanity historically. The men were hunters and the women doing agriculture and running around all day. That was life. What do we do now? We sit in our can. We don't do very much. And we don't like to sweat. It ruins our makeup or our hairdo or our clothing. We don't think about it.
We don't want to smell bad.
Well, we're sedentary in the office. There's no place to be sweaty and smelly.
Right.
Yet if we don't exercise, the problem is a lot of the environmental toxins in our food, water, air, and soil are soluble in fat, so they stay in our fat tissues. The only way you can get them out really in a sort of a way that makes sense is to sweat, whether it be a sauna or you're doing some kind of exercise.
And then you can't leave it on you either. You need to wash it off.
Yes, you do need a shower after sweating. I agree. And then infrared saunas are better than the others. I think they eliminate also the heavy metals because they penetrate more deeply into the body with infrared, and that releases the heavy metals to the surface. So we have some ways, but how many people are doing this? And then replacing the water lost with pure, clean water and not bottled, stagnant, canned water.
Well, a lot of the water that we drink is actually bad for you.
That's
even
right.
tap water, you refer to it a lot of the time as dead water.
It's dead. I look at it energetically using some of the sophisticated tests I have for energy fields, and canned food, canned water, or bottled water, they all look dead.
Well,
so does municipal.
Fish can't even live in it because of the chloramine that's in there.
Yes, and there's a website, peopleagainstchloramine.org, for people who are having respiratory troubles from just the municipal tap water.
And two, if you're taking a shower, like we were talking about washing those toxins off that we've sweated, if we don't have the proper filter in our shower, we're breathing a lot of chlorine gas. You know what else I was reading recently is that if you brush your teeth with toothpaste that has some of that triclosan in it, the antibacterial, it combines with the chlorine in the water and it causes chloroform and dioxins.
Oh, my God.
It's a toxic
So put that in your mouth and chew it.
Yeah, really.
No, don't do that.
Yeah, I'm sure all these show up in the live blood cell analysis too. All these, how the toxins affect our blood. I mean, you were talking yesterday about how a lot of times the blood clumps or
The blood clumps. But beyond that, the blood can get into degenerative phase. It can show congestion, as I described, but it also can show microbial overgrowth. This is the late stage of congestion, blood degeneration. So then the microbial load goes way, way up. And we see this in, again, patients with chronic disease have a lot of microbes in their blood.
I remember one time seeing one of your videos, and it showed little worms swimming around the blood cells.
And sometimes I'm seeing worms because they're in the food supply, folks. Our food is coming from everywhere in the world now, and I had at least 3 cases of bona fide worms in the blood last year in research. It's awesome. People eating raw foods, especially
Raw
fish and
huh?
meat. Raw meat and raw fish.
Yeah, it makes me wonder if the wasabi's really killing those
I
parasites.
hope so. Well, a lot of doctors think that blood is sterile. You know, we do blood cultures all the time when we're trying to see if somebody has an infection that's invaded the bloodstream. And we know that just chewing food causes bacteria to go into the bloodstream. It's sort of a paradox that we do the blood cultures, nothing grows out. We assume there's nothing there. Yet with people who have artificial joints or who have a heart valve that's been replaced, we worry about bacteria seeding in those places and causing infection that can be life-threatening. So we know it's there on the one hand, on the other hand, we deny it's there. And when you look at live blood cell in your research studies, you know that you see something there that looks exactly like microbes.
Yes. Everybody has some microbes, and I think some of them are probably probiotic, even if they're not recognized by conventional
Probiotic
medicine.
meaning ones that are naturally there, that are important to have to preserve wellness.
That are friendly.
Yeah, just like the ones we have in our gut, and our skin, and our eyes, and our vagina, in every place. Really, we're living in harmony with nature, and in blood it's the same way. So when blood becomes stagnant, like what you're talking about, what you'll see there is an overgrowth of these things because the internal environment has shifted and allowed them to overgrow.
And it's also, one can see them literally coming out of the blood cells sometimes. The red cells giving birth to microbes. They're infested,
Yay.
literally. Again, these are not conventional ideas. And
Well, who looks at a live blood cell analysis in clinical practice?
Yes.
No one.
I think it's criminal that they don't. In fact, I think it's malpractice that they don't.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, why shouldn't this be part of the toolbox that we have to be able to assess disease? It surprises me sometimes at how limited we are with things we're unfamiliar. And if you're unfamiliar with it, a lot of the time in science, we just throw it out. Just like we do the role of spirit and healing generally. You know, back in a couple of hundred years ago, when Newton came along, we got in a mode of thinking that we were just scientists. And what we understood, we went ahead and studied and applied in our use. What we didn't know, like the role of spirit, we gave back to the church or to the shaman. Said, we don't want any part of this because we don't know what to do with it. And yet there's traditional indigenous healing systems that include studying the whole thing. And when we're looking at modern medicine, the role of a test like a live blood cell analysis has so much valuable information that we should bring forward. I mean, your work has been like a pioneer in this area. And I'm sure you've published papers on this that have talked about
it. Sounds like, too, it really shows up if you are exercising enough, because if you're not, your blood gets like a cesspool.
Yes, that's exactly right. It's like a stagnant pool of water. You know, the body is 70-80% water. We're basically water held together by some biomolecules. And when we don't move, when we don't clean it, I always tell people it's like dirty dishes in the sink. If you didn't flush it with water, think of what's growing there. If that's just sitting, you know that it's going to start smelling and rotting. And so I look at how quickly the blood rusts and rots. I look at blood for at least an hour. I want to see how quickly, if at all, the cells break up or not.
So it's like a stress test.
It's a stress test because
where you're testing what happens over time,
that's right,
rather than just at 1 second.
That's right.
It's like we do a cardiac stress test. You know, you do an EKG and it shows nothing. You do a stress test, you might show something. You do a test that's a little more advanced than that, and it starts to show what you can't find on tests that are not sensitive enough.
That's the idea, yeah. And people start rotting and rusting faster when their blood has less integrity, when the body is more polluted. That's very easily seen.
Now, you're going to show some of this at our event, Healthy Planet, Healthy People?
Absolutely.
On Tuesday, tonight,
planning
at the Lesher Center?
Still photos as well as some short video clips so you can see white blood cells moving, microbes moving in some blood, cancer cells. Just get an idea what your own blood might look like.
Well, it'd be good to get some of our doctors at this event so they can get an idea, because they don't see this in clinical practice. What we do is look at dried blood that's been stained, and it takes away all the physiology of what's happening.
It doesn't move.
Well, it can't.
Well, it's based on the death sciences rather than a real science of life, and we still could use, I would say, a little more work toward a real science of life. Our biology is still a lot of let's kill the animal and take a look at it.
Yeah, really, that's right. Now, we talk about exercise and sweating, and we talk about detoxification, getting back to our theme here. What kinds of things can we do to detoxify besides use water that might help us to be able to have a cleaner environment inside and be healthier?
Another thing I'm concerned about for women is bras. Bras can be very restrictive of lymphatic circulation, and the lymph is, again, part of that cleansing system. There's a flow to the lymph.
It's our sewer system,
yes,
right?
Yes.
And if it backs up, you get polluted, right?
Right, and then you've got these tight bras, especially for exercise, that hold the breasts. Then they say
bras.
absolutely no bouncing. I want my breasts to bounce.
I want them to bounce too.
Qigongs that people do
That's right.
to bounce their breasts to promote that lymphatic circulation and drainage from the breast to move those toxins out of the fatty tissues of the breast. I don't want a bra that's going to hold me tight. In fact, I don't wear any bra when I exercise. I only wear bras for business.
Well, we'll keep that in mind.
So when do you exercise?
Yeah. Where can we watch you, Beverly?
Well, I'm in dance class almost every morning, bouncing around.
But what I've noticed about a lot of the young girls that have started wearing bras, they wear them when they go to bed.
Oh, my God.
Well, it's a new thing, and they think it's great. Anyway, Beverly, thank you so much for being with us today. And let's remind our listeners that we have an event tonight. Be at the Lesher Theater. It's called Healthy Planet, Healthy People, sponsored by the Health Medicine Forum. And if you would like to come, you can buy a ticket at 925-943-SHOW, 925-943-SHOW. And that'll get you a ticket for $15, but there'll be $20 at the door.
And it's close to the BART station in Walnut Creek.
Right, it's about a 2-block walk. So this would be great. Thanks again for being with us, and we'll see you tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.